Hello, story seekers. Welcome back. Say that again. Welcome back to the Tiny Bookcase. We're joined again by Ivor K. Hill, and I thought I'd just introduce him for you. Ivor is a writer of epic fantasy, grimdark, and horror, whose debut novel, The First Scars, was longlisted for the 10th Fantasy Self-Publishing Award run by Mark Lawrence. A folk horror anthology of short stories, to be launched by the Slab Press at FantasyCon later this year in Brighton, will feature Ivor's first conventionally published work. His work in progress is an epic fantasy novel, which uses a similarly inspired, Belfast-inspired voice, and he's looking forward to pitching it in a couple of months. We'd like to welcome Ivor K. Hill.
Oh,
Ivor.
hiya.
How are you? That's not the first question, but it is a question.
I'm not too bad. I suppose there's only one lie in that bio, and it's I'm absolutely dreading pitching a novel.
Go on. What are you worried about in terms of the actual pitching bit? Is it like, because it's a lot of work, I know, but or is it like fear of putting yourself out there?
Yeah, it's always scary putting yourself out there. Like
Yeah.
even on a podcast with gentlemen as welcoming as yourselves, it's still a little bit frightening, you know. So the faceless person at a computer far away is even more scary when they're reading your book.
I know that feeling. Well, hopefully you feel a little bit better about this one now that we've all been through the gauntlet of telling stories together. So I thought I'd better open us up by asking you, who inspired you to start telling your own stories?
Who? That's a good one. Usually it's what. Do I
Mm,
have a who? I guess it must be my mum and dad are both big readers. You know, so there were always books around the house, and they were never. It's the same story as everyone else, you know, who gets into writing. One thing I think I benefited from was my mum and dad didn't try and curate my taste in any way.
Yeah.
It was whatever book was there that I was interested in, no matter the age restriction or whatever it might be. So I was reading, David Gemmell whenever I was, probably younger than 10. Um, I just I always got really swept away by fantasy specifically. I think we mentioned during the short story section about how fantasy can be such a fertile ground and a safe ground almost to
yeah.
develop analogies for the real world, and that's
Yeah.
always really appealed to me.
Do you think there's a book you could give us an example of that you think has like actually helped you explore a real world issue through the medium of fantasy?
Or like a
Ooh.
personal issue. Yeah.
Well, there's one thing that is in pretty much every fantasy novel you're ever going to read, and that's caste as a metaphor for class, if you like.
Yeah.
So my background's in sociology, and public health is what I do now, and that they're both really preoccupied with social class and the kind of material distribution of wealth and how that affects people's physical being and their other capacities. Um, that's really common in fantasy. We even had a really extreme example from our stories earlier with the indulgences in the Catholic Church, where
Mm.
only the rich can buy their way into heaven.
Yeah.
Problematic,
Oh,
to say the least.
yeah. They have a thing about that, don't they? Something about camels and the eyes of needles. My
And angels dancing on pinheads, I think.
yeah, that's the one. So for yourself, Ivor, do you feel connected to a particular culture or subculture? And if you do, has that shaped your writing at all?
Yeah, so the big one for me nowadays is I've been living in Glasgow for 10 years. I moved here to do a PhD and had the great misfortune of meeting a very wonderful person who I stayed for, Damer. And I've developed a real kind of a nostalgia to an extent, and also interest in where I'm from in Belfast. Belfast is a really interesting place, of course,
Yeah.
but for a lot of people, you need to kind of leave, I think, to begin to see it as interesting rather than something just to escape from. It's the same thing you see, a lot of people want to get away from rurality to urbanity. The grass is always greener. You're always told, in Belfast that it's an insular place and so on. And it took leaving to realize that that's not really true. It's actually as wonderful and fascinating a place as anywhere else. So a lot of my current work in progress, for example, is really it's about celebrating, especially the kind of voices that you hear um, in that part of the world, which I think can be accessible, authentic, and just as evocative as they are in day-to-day life.
I think my follow-up question there is a bit of a strange one. So feel free to bat it back on it if it's no good for you. But the currently, and like I'm aware of it, I know they're playing Glasgow and stuff at the moment. But I know like Kneecap are in the news a lot.
Mhm.
And I was wondering what you thought about that in terms of, because obviously you're doing one thing with a Belfast identity, and it feels like they're doing something quite different, not necessarily counter, just different. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that, just seeing as we're talking about Belfast culture.
Yeah, I suppose Kneecap are about punk, right? If there's one word to really sum them
Yeah,
up, that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's punk rebellion. Um, they actually come from the opposite side of the community, uh, or the opposite community, if you want to phrase it that way. To me,
Mhm.
um, personally, I think one of the last things I ever want to see is artists being censored.
Yeah.
Um, I think well, actually, artists are the first people to be censored because they're the last people that should be censored, if
Yeah,
that makes any sense. So yeah, I think they're pretty impressive. Getting global attention now on are we home?
yeah. I mean, I actually encountered their music first, and then watched the movie, and then revisited and watched and listened to a lot more of their music, and I thought the movie was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. So it feels like they're definitely good artists, so they should be respected as artists, not
Yeah.
condemned or whatever that the establishment's currently doing to them. I know it's so I've probably dated it a little bit by saying that they're playing Glasgow, because that might tell you what day of the year we've recorded this on. But yeah, it's wild. My understanding is that they're not being covered at all by the TV coverage. They're not being televised.
Mm, yeah.
Fuck's
Um,
sake.
it's pretty fucking wild, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been into punk for a very long time. One day a punk band are gonna do what punk bands do and make a social wave through their music, and the sort of in inverted commas sensible world isn't gonna immediately shit the bed. But it's not this day, apparently.
It's also a really great way
Uh,
to further mic up their performances is to say you're not allowed to see it, right?
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Adding a book to the banned book list gets it read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gosh. So, on books, what themes do you find particularly appealing when you're reading fiction? So, I know we've talked already about, yeah, it being a vector to discuss real world issues, but in particular to do with like the themes of fiction.
Yeah, I think something I'm interested in nowadays is uh, masculinity, how men tend to be presented compared to, I mentioned David Gemmell earlier, and as much as I like David Gemmell, um, you do get the occasional uh, old-fashioned depiction.
Yeah,
Um, I'm very lucky to be raised by a competent, emotionally intelligent man, so I find it quite, I find it much more enjoyable whenever men are like that, because
yeah,
Mm.
it's been my experience, right? And then of course, I do love a good rebellion or seeing kings being overthrown or whatever. Actually, in my own writing, I kind of refuse to have princes or kings or anyone like that because I just, I'm so familiar with that archetype that it's other people that I think are more interesting just by lack of my familiarity with them now.
Yeah. It's a really interesting way of looking at it. We know the story of the king and the prince, so we don't need to hear it anymore. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Although I think it can, I also don't want to be reading about how everything's a perfect meritocracy and all you need
Yeah.
to do is try really hard and you can become the right hand of the king or whatever.
The you mentioned about you like to see good examples of positive masculinity in your characters. It's a rough one to ask, but are there any characters that you love or have loved growing up that now, through an educated lens, through an awareness of toxic masculinity, you've had your opinion changed of?
Yeah, there's one David Gemmell character actually now that I've seen to be on David Gemmell. And just really, I still really, really, really love his stories. But there's a character called Tanaka Khan. I remembered him being so cool when I was like 12.
Yeah,
So competent and everything. Um, I've got to be honest though, thinking about it, I think his hyper competence and his maybe lack of openness to other characters or whatever at times is maybe an intentional flaw.
yeah.
Um, it- but I just wouldn't have noticed that when younger. Maybe that would have went over my head.
I know when you were, I was sort of reading your website and things like that, and you mentioned alongside Gemmell, I think the next name that you mentioned was Robin Hobb,
Oh yeah.
and that must be quite interesting to get her depiction of Fitz Chivalry Farseer and Burrich and
Mm.
Verity and all of those characters, because it's a really intimate and vulnerable portrayal of a lot of very different male archetypes.
Yeah,
Um,
she's the Grand Mamio, I think, for me. My favorite one of her books is actually I forget the name of it. It's the seventh one in the Fitz line where with B Farseer, and he has to
ah, yes.
become this he has to become a much more hands-on father figure than he had been. Um, I think I've read that book 3 times and I've cried every time. I think it's amazing.
The Fitz coming to a realization about how he's been fucking up and how he needs to be doing better is a
Mm.
recurring theme in those books, and it
Yeah.
gets me every single fucking time. I think is that first one called Fool's Assassin. That one in that third trilogy. I always forget. There,
The one
unfortunately,
with the
I
green
have them on a
cover.
bookcase, but not in this room. Um,
I think there's
God,
something just marvelous to be said about great depictions of fatherhood across the all of the books that I have read. And it's you go, someone reset the clock because I'm going to bring up Sam Vimes, but watching characters like Vimes learn how to be better men through having to suddenly be a dad, I think it always
Mm.
makes for really interesting reading. Watching and
or
people
in the case of
doing it well.
Vimes, a husband as well. He has to do
Yeah,
it
that too.
first because he's a husband. So it's not even just like that classic, like, you need to be a better man because you're a father now. It's like he learns how to be a better man through the love of a good woman,
Yeah,
which
there's,
is a nice way of doing it, I think.
there's a Sybil quote that I think of so often, which is when she's describing Sam in her inner voice. She says, "Not a gentleman, but a gentleman."
Mm.
And
Mm,
what a thing
yeah.
to aspire to be.
Yeah. So
Of,
so
Yeah,
but
simple as
absolutely.
well.
this is all far too
Yeah.
sensible and well-meaning. So imagine, either hypothetically, that there were two writer podcasters and they were held hostage by a powerful and capricious bibliomancer. And that bibliomancer drew his energy from people's love of books. And so he sends these two out once a week to find more books for his library. What novel is the closest to your heart to buy them some time? hypothetically?
Can I give you three? If they're by the same person? And they're
Hey,
not that short.
we'll take it.
Yeah. My favorite author nowadays is I've never had a favorite author before. Robin Hobb was always fighting with Stephen Erickson. Until I came across Christopher Buehlman, who's an American author, or possibly he's a North American author or some, I'm not sure. He originally started in horror, and he's got this story called Between Two Fires, which is set during the plague, the Black Plague in France. And then he's got The Black Tongue Thief, who on the front cover of which is a review from Robin Hobb and The Daughter's
really?
War. Yeah. It's all coming full circle. So yeah, the Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman is a really, really interesting book, especially for someone from where I'm from, because he's putting on an Irish accent. And I have thoughts on that. But if the main character from that book could be drawn out of the book, he'd save you with hilarious side effects.
So what are your thoughts on it? Do you mean it's written accented? The dialogue is written accented, or is it?
Yeah, to an extent, but he also reads the audiobook himself.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
And it's quite funny because when I first started listening to it, it was like, oh god, this accent is something else. But I always listen to audiobooks sped up. And when I put it up to like 1.3 or whatever, it suddenly sounded like a passable fantasy version of the Irish accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas it
that's a
didn't
cool
work
tip.
before for me. It was an accident.
1.3. I might try that and see how it changes things. What does Stephen Pacey sound like if you put him on two times, like two times speed?
So I did have him at must be 1.4 because he is a bit slow. Although the werewolf character in Devils was too fast when I sped it up, so I think I had to find some kind of happy medium. But
Right.
you lose a lot less than you think, especially if you're an impatient listener like me.
Oh no!
Gosh.
Were you secretly listening to us at 1.3 times speed?
And now we're speaking so slow.
No.
We should ask another question, Ben.
And
So
then it gets
this one's a
faster and
bit on the
higher.
nose.
Oh,
Yeah.
go for it, go for it.
This one is a bit on the nose after the conversations that we had in the previous episode, potentially. But what role, what role does religion have in storytelling for you?
Oh, it's funny you should ask. I was on at EasterCon this year. I was on the religion in fantasy panel
Oh,
with
Oh,
nice.
Rebecca Roanhorse and Adrian Tchaikovsky were on it, which was amazing because spiders, fantastic. Um, to me, there's this kind of theme nowadays, which is emerging that we should be more respectful of religion, and I think that's coming from a very well-meaning kind of inclusivity angle, which I'm all for. But anything that tells you how to think and how to live your life must always be under maximum scrutiny, as far as I'm concerned.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Hell fucking hell yeah.
so if you can have wholesome examples of religious people, um, but if you're building a religion in fantasy, um, I just don't see how you can take the theme of power out of that at all.
I mean, you can't, can you? How fantastical and different to our world do you have to be to remove the concept of greed from a giant organization telling you that greed will put you in the burny hot place forever?
Yeah.
It's
You raise an interesting
Well,
point though,
even
because you know when
yeah, go ahead.
whenever you're building a pantheon or whatever, so one of the defining articles of faith is doubt, right?
yeah,
Um, we can't know what's going to happen or what's afterlife or whatever. But in a fantasy, you can completely remove the doubt, and it doesn't.
yes,
If anything, that makes the power dynamic even more fraught. But it is a
Yeah.
funny kind of difference between what it means to be religious in a fantasy book where the gods are, active, run about being jackasses or whatever, compared to real life.
It's a great point. It's a great point. The only other thing I was going to mention here was that I'm just thinking about what you said earlier about trying to avoid stories about kings and princes and things like that. Like we've seen from their point of view before, but
Mhm.
it's actually also quite difficult to divorce the concept of religion from the concept of kings as well, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
where does
Monarchies,
that original kind of idea of monarchy come from? It's like this idea that like you've preordained by God, you're somehow sanctified by God to be the biggest bastard standing at the top of the heap. It's rough, that isn't it? Like it's if you've got kings in your fantasy, then you've kind of got to have religion as well to underpin it, give it a sense of
Yeah.
permanence outside of one person's lifespan.
A thing I had not thought of until right now. So I'm going to say it, and unfortunately, Ivor, you got to experience this.
Oh no.
Do you think so? A lot of horror, or at least Western horror, relies on a lot of religious concepts. Things like ghosts rely on the concept of an afterlife and peaceful
Or a
passing.
soul, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think it's do you think there's an interesting way that you could remove the religious aspect of horror but keep the cool spooky bits? It feels like that'd be real.
It's hard. Because I'm trying to think of an answer that isn't just, death. Death's really important to everything. Life's about death, but
Well,
struggling a
then it
bit.
potentially gets into whether we're talking organized religion or spirituality, right? Like those are two
Yeah,
quite
true.
different things. So like you can have a concept of a soul or an afterlife without needing, you know, a time of the week where you go to
Mhm.
a building together and pray to a sky wizard. That you don't need that to have the former.
True.
Um, so I don't know whether that answers that or helps you answer that, Ivor. But it's an interesting question. Like, which genres are dead in the water if you remove religion and religious concepts entirely?
I guess there's like little sub branches, or body horror doesn't necessarily need to
True.
Mm.
bring death, life and death, and that can be about who am I right now. Um, and lots of other, like horror doesn't have to be about the fear of death. I think if you bring death in, can you get away from? If you can't get away from the question of an afterlife, can you get away from the question of spirituality at the very least? I don't know.
Or
I
just the
feel
supernatural,
quite
like the
unfair.
because yeah, no, it's a good question, and like I think that's why I've stepped in to also try and answer it as well because it's fascinating me immediately. It's a good question, but yeah, it's the supernatural as well, isn't it? Like it's often priests as characters are often used to interact with the supernatural in stories, whether they're contemporary fiction, fantasy, or other kinds
Mhm.
of genre fiction. But not necessary. You could have some sort of like yogi shaman in your stories instead of a Catholic priest.
I mean,
Do the
the
Exorcist, but with a
Exorcist is
shaman.
yeah, the Exorcist is very different. If the guy turns up, he's like, just another one of these where a child with a mental health illness, I throw some water on him, and her head starts spinning, and he's like, I just wanted a big yacht. This is fuck. I don't want to be involved in this. God's not real. Help me. I'd watch that.
Mm.
New genre created. Oh, crikey. Good. Well, that was
Right.
a fantastic derail. Nice work.
Yeah, I'm good at that. Go on. Speaking of what I'm probably going to have to do to this conversation, what's your editing process, Ivor?
Well, I'm in the middle of it right now. I took a sabbatical from work to write my work in progress, the first draft of it. So that was 4 months off with no pay,
Damn.
um, which I would recommend everyone do if they can because it was bloody brilliant.
Hey.
Um, but yeah, now I'm back at work and trying to work on a second draft for my current novel. And I kind of come at it first of all from a big, medium, small changes. Go through the big, do the medium, do the small. Then try and work on the voice. I think a voice is voice is everything almost. Um, I think that I think people will read a bad story if the voice is compelling. Um, I remember being at, what was it, Chimera? Was it 2023? I'm gonna forget this guy's name. Why? Sebastian de Castel, I think his name is, and he's the author of the Maleficent Seven, and he was talking about how he is essentially pitched and sold and sold for six figures his debut series based entirely on the voice. Um, and I think that that there's both an enjoyment angle to it, and there's that more capitalist perspective. So once I finish the voice, then it's the usual editing tools, like making sure small things like making sure if you end on dialogue in one chapter, start on internal monologue or action in the next chapter, boring stuff like that.
Yeah.
Trying to sort of mix it up a little bit. Apparently, the author of the Maleficent Seven is Cameron Johnson.
Oh, that's someone in my writers group. Who am I getting mixed up with? I'm gonna look it up. Because
That's okay. We can cut it out.
Cameron Johnston is in my Glasgow Sci-Fi Writers Group. That's
We've spoken to several very, very talented authors that are a part of that group, so it must be an absolute killer meetup, I would have thought.
It is like the first Scars went through that group 3 times. Everything I write goes through it, and I try to contribute as best I can. He wrote The Malevolent Eight, so I was bloody close.
Malevolent Eight
Sebastian.
and Maleficent Seven. Yeah, that was pretty close, wasn't it? Yeah. I love this idea about like going through deliberately looking for voice and to like polish up voice and bring voice in. I think that's because it can become quite mechanical sometimes, especially when you're writing something longer, I think. So it's nice to go through and just, you're like, okay, so I can see I've sketched that out, but like, here's my personality. Here's this authorial voice that needs to be in here, ever present. I like that. That's good to remember that. Good to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're writing, of course. If that's what you want, like if you have a whole bunch of POVs, and the narrative voice might want to be quite plain, maybe, and let your characters shine in dialogue a bit more. But yeah, it's you need to find the right tool for the job, and the book I'm working on at the minute, I think voice is a huge selling point, and it's one of the main reasons to write it. It's a lot of fun.
And really brave to do the time off as well, and just focus on yourself, nail the writing, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I would say that I did a bit longer than that for do some bits for me, and I would say 4 months is the sweet spot for that. So I think you nailed that spot on.
Oh, I don't know. Grass is greener. I wish I tripled it.
Well, yeah, well, I guess if you've got the resources to do it, I think if you're eking it out, like you kind of get to a point where you're very worried about resources when you should be worried. You shouldn't be worried. You should be trying to focus on your craft.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I've never really believed the starving artist thing. This idea of like art, you somehow have to suffer for your art in that way. I think people are best, typically going to be better at doing the thing that they love doing when they are well fed, well rested, looked after,
Yeah, yeah. I can't operate at all if I'm hungry, so I don't.
Yeah. But writing something of that size, it's an endurance thing, isn't it? It's not a quick spark of brilliance. It's over 100,000 words takes a lot of time to write, and it takes even longer to edit it. So you've got to be in a good place to be able to do it, I think. So
Yeah, it's bang on 100,000 words. This one.
is
Part of the
it?
reason why is because so much of the attention, like I'm putting much more attention on diction, than I would if it wasn't such a voicey project. So keeping it a bit shorter was. Luckily, it's totally compatible with what I'm trying to achieve, but it would have just taken too long, to do it and have a life, right?
Yeah.
When you're saying, go on, Ben.
No, go for it.
You're saying it started to feel like it could get longer. Did you get the point where you thought, oh, maybe this is a series, maybe there's more here, maybe like how do you know? When do you cut yourself off?
Yeah, it's a hard question. So actually, what I've done, it's 2 books now. It started off as one, um, but I'm being really brutal. If it's going to be 2 books, it needs to be short. needs to be 100,000 words.
Yeah.
And that worked. The way it fell was kind of the midpoint twist of the original concept became the ending of the first book, and then R.J. Barker, who's my amazing British Fantasy Society mentor, um, argued with me blue in the face to not end the book with what I was trying to do, and convinced me. So it's now the start of the next book. So I kind of had that like neat split, right down the middle, around the midpoint twist to work with.
And a shout out to RJ, friend of the podcast, friend of everyone. He's bloody lovely. But
Delightful guy.
what's
Yeah,
that
he's good.
relationship like? I can't imagine RJ arguing with anyone.
Yeah, that took
Oh
me aback
well,
as well. I've yeah, go on.
argue was far too strong a word. Far too strong a word.
Yeah, but he was
Did
It
he
was
passionate about
politely suggest
no, it was a
repeatedly?
yeah. Well, he has so much wisdom,
Yeah.
when it comes to writing, and I don't know how you find it, but sometimes when you're getting feedback, the feedback on some level they're right, but
Yeah.
because you know that there's all these other, like, for example, dependencies, other things that need to change if you make that change,
Mhm.
you'll kind of give in to hope and see if you can talk them around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, RJ is just fantastic. He's really great in that mentor role, and he does look a little bit like a wizard, which which certainly helps. Yeah.
It always helps. Need to get him a hat now. To get
A
RJ
very
a hat.
sort of mighty Bushi goth wizard thing going on, isn't he? I'm
Yeah.
about it.
Top stuff. Wonderful. So the next question was going to be about your next project, but I feel like we've covered that really, really well. That was
I think we know.
that was such an exciting way of looking into what you're currently editing and what your approach to it was. It was really good. So I was wondering if you could potentially maybe like pitch the first scars to our audience, and then they can go and grab their own copy.
Yeah, the first Scars is, it's grim, dark, Edge of Tomorrow. So we've got a bunch of characters who, um, for whatever reason, have volunteered to be part of this, like, a special military force, I suppose you could call it. But everyone's a volunteer, and they are Oh, can I do that again?
Yeah, go for it.
One of the problems I've always had with the first Scars is pitching it, um, because what I really want to do is talk about, like, Elden Ring and Dark Souls and how they
Yeah.
kind of inspired this book, which is it's a meditation on, cyclicality versus linearity and stuff like that. But if I mention Elden Ring and Dark Souls, most people, I find, look at me like I'm a bit mental. Um, why is this guy talking about computer games? He's not even talking about D&D. And I've had people say things like, it's not game lit, is it? You know. Um, but it's essentially, yeah, it's Grimdark Edge of Tomorrow. I've got a group of soldiers who are going off to end a curse, and every time they get killed, they come back, and they have, like, increasingly awful murders happen to them, if you like, and they get killed in lots of inventive ways. And the really kind of interesting nugget of the story was it was about the relationships between these characters who are trying to end this curse together, and they keep messing up, they keep getting it wrong, and that creates a real kind of, like, social pressure cooker, among
Yeah.
that group. And that was where, as a writer, it was the most fun. It was the relationships. I even come up with this kind of a hypothesis I had to try and prove when I was writing it, that that being that there's no such thing as character, there's only relationships.
Ah,
So,
character. Do you feel like you did?
I actually, yeah, well, I've convinced myself.
Yeah.
um, I struggle to think of stories where it isn't the relationships that matter more than
Yeah.
anything else. Even, like, is it The Martian? It's just called The Martian, isn't it? Where he's
Andy Weir.
Andy
Yeah.
Weir, yeah.
yeah. So much of that is about his relationship with in the movie as well. I've only seen the movie, sorry. If I remember right, so much of it is about his relationship with his past and the people from his past and how they might view him. But
Yeah, and like and then a freak out about a potato.
Yeah,
That's
I remember quite a lot about potatoes. That was
yeah, yeah.
my takeaway from the Martian. And of course, he could have just got potatoes from the takeaway, couldn't
Intergalactic Deliveroo. That was one
Yeah.
of your first ever stories for the
That
bookcase.
was my first ever story
Your
for
first
the
ever story
podcast.
was a
Yeah.
intergalactic pizza delivery guy. Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
It's good
How do
fun.
they
I
keep it
haven't
warm?
improved, it seems.
How do they keep it warm? Immediately, you've got some SF writing in your future, my friend.
They had he's got that big green bag they put on the back of their bike, isn't he? You know, the one that delivers your food at the opposite temperature that you would want it. So your Subway salad is boiling hot and your McDonald's burger is freezing cold. It's genius.
Mm. Yeah.
We are not
Fair enough.
sponsored by Subway or McDonald's. Let's say they're both shit. There you go, covered it.
Oh, there
Unless
you
they
go.
play us, in which case they're good.
Shit at being bad because they're good. Okay, now it's covered.
We're covered. We've got all the facets of that one. Well, it's been absolutely wonderful telling stories with you and hearing your take on a bunch of things. We've had a really nice little completely lateral move into which genres will get nuked by the removal of religion entirely.
Mm.
And yeah, this has just been a lot of fun. So thank you for telling your story with us, and thanks for just hanging out and taking us on a bit of a
Surviving the
stroll
heat
through.
with us.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, it's been really good, Ivor. Thank you so much. I was going to ask, do you have any questions for us at all? We keep having this, and I just wonder whether we should start asking people if they have any questions.
One thing I was wondering, because I've listened to quite a few of the podcasts so far.
Yeah.
Big fan. I'm gonna listen to a lot more.
Oh, thank you.
Are you gonna ever do an anthology?
You yes.
You should listen to the episode that comes out next week.
Oh, okay.
It's
Definitely been mentored by Mr. RJ Barker, haven't you?
RJ is very keen for us to take that next step forward. We did one very early on, which was a very homebrew attempt,
Mm.
and it was a lot of effort and
Yeah.
for not very much outcome really. We would love to. It is the short answer, and we will
Yeah.
do. And we're in talks with some people about progressing that. So it's
Oh, that's good.
exciting times. But yeah, no, it's a great, it's a good question, I think, and we
Mm.
really should have been doing it before now. And a big part of it is that we would just be so incredibly honoured to have our names alongside a lot of the authors that we have on the podcast. You know, if they were to come out as um, anthologies, you know, people that would come on
Yeah.
and we put them in anthologies,
Yeah.
it would just
Yeah.
be incredible because we every time we get to tell stories with someone like yourself, it's a big deal for us. So yeah, it's definitely the next step, and I think you're right to push us in that direction.
Yeah, I've been delighted to be part of this as well. You know, if it comes to it, whether you're working traditionally or not, there are things like Kickstarter out there that, from my experience, you know, can make something a little bit more viable.
Bible. It's a great idea. I know Nico has a bit of experience with doing stuff for Kickstarter, and but I mean your insight, maybe off mic, maybe your insight would be phenomenal on that, because to have gotten your project funded by 800% of what it needed
Yeah.
seems like an incredible feat. So well done for that. But
Yeah, I've done two now as well. I just
yeah.
wrapped up a limited edition version of the first Scars.
And do you feel like people get what they want out of it as well? Because that's always a big thing for me, that people should get what they want. You know.
Yeah, I think so. You know, a lot of it is a lot of Kickstarter backers, they're coming at things purely from like a direction of kindness and wanting to see other people do well and wanting to be part of other people's success stories. So I think something I've kind of gleaned is that even seeing where the campaign itself ends, never mind what comes out of it, but the funding it gets, people like to be part of little stories like that, you know? So I think people get a lot out of it in that respect. As to whether or not they get a lot out of you know, the product, the whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Art in our cases, but you know, it depends on what they're into, I think.
absolutely. Yeah, but I think you answered my question there, which is that like that idea of them being a part of the journey, part of the story, part of
Mhm.
the experience of making art. Full stop. I think is the end of that. It's
Mhm.
making art. They get to be a part of it. That's yeah. I can see how that would be an exciting part. Gosh, this has been good. I mean, I will just wrap up by asking where people can go to keep up to date with your news. Like, do you regularly post anywhere, or yeah, what's the best
Unfortunately,
way?
I have an almost deathly allergy to posting on social media, sadly.
Yeah,
But I'm reachable on my website, ivorkhill.com, and on pretty much every social media. I've got a profile you can message me on.
wonderful.
Well,
Well,
with that,
go
I
for
think
it.
we can release you back to the streets of Glasgow.
Of where?
Is
Glasgow.
are you in Glasgow, Ivor, or has he just assumed that?
No, I am, yeah.
Oh wow! How did you
I
intuit that? Did you already tell that? Tell us that.
I've told
Uh,
us.
Oh my
I
gosh!
think I
Sorry.
mentioned it during the email exchanges because I had the concerts that had to be
Yeah.
scheduled because of.
Yeah, you're totally right. Sorry, my brain is absolutely fried by this heat. Sorry about that, Nick.
I'm also leaving all of this in. People who are listening, you'll be
This is
used to this shit.
well, this is me operating at about 10% efficiency, I'm afraid. But I've had a really good time here, so thank you so much. And yeah, we'll release you back onto the streets of Glasgow.
Can I stay
Where?
indoors or do I have to go outside?
No, you have to. We have to force you outside. I think.
Shirt
Terms and
off, belly
conditions,
down
eh?
on the pavement.
Well, thanks very much. I've had a great time too.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend if you like this episode. Link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?